Thank you very much, Peter. Our next speaker is going to be Brendan O'Brien. His evaluator will be Rob Kanzer. And Rob, thank you very much for stepping up to the plate. Could you give Brendan's objectives, I almost said objections for us, please?
I could give the objectives for Brendan O'Brien. And the reason that I can give you these objectives is I have an empty hand. The empty hand comes to you today from the special substitution emergency system of the club. In other words, I have no idea what the speech is about. I was asked a couple of minutes ago whether I might, and now my hand is not empty. Miraculously, like the store owner that I am, I divine things as I speak. Number one, this is not a speech from the manual. Brendan, you have this as your set of objectives. You will have a clear purpose, introduction, body, and conclusion. You will give a smooth delivery, and your transitions throughout the main topic will be smooth. You will give an example of a recognized mental example that is...
Condition, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry?
Mental condition.
Mental condition. You'll give an example of a recognized mental condition. And finally, you will encourage self-improvement and overcoming difficulties. To give to you, Mr. Toastmaster Brendan O'Brien.
Thank you. My name is Al Davis.
Yes.
You said give it to me, Mr. Toastmaster.
Okay. That's another spin on the magic of speech.
Absolutely.
You're the store owner.
I'm that guy.
Must be.
Yeah.
Rob has this, Rob, did you, I think I gave you something, you said something to me already. But Brendan says, I like giving back in physical ways simply by lending my two hands to paperwork, like helping teenagers with homework in an after-school program, or using my two arms to help build things for charity like Habitat for Humanity. And straight from having worked with Jimmy Carter, apparently, I introduce Brendan O'Brien.
I knew that about him. Let me put my recording device. The people around you through intelligent autistic eyes. People with high-functioning autism or Asperger's are known to have symptoms of autism, but are capable of functioning in basically normal society. And people not necessarily find it obvious. You have a mental problem. You seem to be fine. Look how you're going. But that's true. But I say intelligent autistic eyes because the mind behind those eyes is always quite intelligent and quite capable of many skills and talents. I am giving you a speech, another speech in a series where I'm developing to become more of an advocate, supporting advisor, just friend to people with Asperger's, because I am past the age of 40 and I've had a couple decades worth of learning about it, and I now have enough information that I feel I can be a Zanaka for those who are held back by the condition, the complications that come with having an intelligent mind, which seems to be a contradiction, hence why I need to help support people and encourage that people are aware of it, that you have an intelligent mind and you should share it with the world. Last time I did a speech on this, I focused on a specific example. I focused on how I experienced exercise in my life, and I was explaining it in a very methodical way of how to give a speech and answer something in a thoughtful way that's understood by who you're speaking to. This time I'm just going to talk about just the basic communication in any everyday scenarios with relationships, with friends, with coworkers. One person that every person with Asperger's needs in their life, especially if you're a developing teenager, becoming an adult into the world and throughout, because you have issues with social cues and social interaction, you need the benefit of a therapist or some sort of coach. And it's obvious when a student is struggling in school and trying to balance all the different things that come with school and sports and doing homework and studying for exams and all the social things that go on. It's obviously a therapist to straighten things out because things aren't right on the same page that you want it to be as you're going through school. But really the essence of what you need from a therapist is to do what they call role playing, and to have an example of someone who can mock the experience with you. Sort of like I go back, I think in my previous speech I mentioned the example of a job interview where it's the ultimate opportunity to show the best impression you have, and the best way to prepare for that great impression is to practice presenting that great impression. And even therapists can help you with mock interview questions because you can practice things like eye contact, just basic behaviors that you want to have done it already when you get to the interview. So I've been a volunteer at a hospital for over 10 years now, and I was a few years into my volunteer, and I noticed this young woman that I volunteer with that I'd like to get to know a little bit more than volunteering. And so I went to my therapist. I said, I like this girl, but I feel very awkward. I don't know how to talk to her. I don't want to come off as too aggressive. Can you give me some ideas? And she hit it right on the head. And which I'm intelligent enough to understand it, but to actually engage the person in the conversation naturally, like a lot of people do, is not someone with Asperger's could do, because I'm constantly holding on to my thoughts before how do I say this? So I practiced with the therapist, the role playing. So she says, ask the girl questions. People, they like to talk about themselves, so ask them a question. Say, wow. And I was doing this for a few weeks with my therapist. I came back and said, how did it go with that? She liked the questions I was asking, and I liked following up my questions with more questions, and we start having a conversation, and I learned so much more about her in just a few minutes than I did in just 3 years volunteering with her already. This conversation, and so it turned out we only remained friends. I was more interested in her, but she was not. But we agreed to be friends after. But the main example I'm trying to illustrate is, and this speech is through the intelligent autistic eyes. So I have this mind capable of so many thoughts, so many. I'm someone who says I can't tell you what my hobbies are because I have too many to answer. We don't have time to go through them all. So I just hope they pick one so we can, the movie's about to start. Do you really like movies? But as getting back to the example, it was an example where, okay, I was sharing myself with another person, and it is someone. I used the quote before in the past. I said when I received an award for my job because I was awarded for using the resources of the state of Massachusetts to help find my job. They said I was a great consumer of resources for Massachusetts to find my job. And at the awards ceremony, I said, if you miss someone like me, you miss someone who's like an undiscovered Einstein. And it's like, not every job is even looking for an Einstein, but how much more benefit would they get if they had one? And that gets to my point, and now I'm going on to my next example as I'm talking about my job with coworkers. With coworkers, you have a chance to share yourself with other people and do a job the way no one else can. I am reached the stop sign, so there will be more to come from this intelligent mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan. It's always a pleasure and an inspiration to hear you speak about your life and your struggles as a man and with the difficulties that you have.
Extra minute. I don't know.
Next we have table topics brought to us by Leanna Henry. Leanna has to say about giving back. There is an old saying which reminds us to always remember we are not here by our works alone. It took many hands and many hearts to get us where we are today. So for that reason, we must always give back to others. Leanna Henry.
So we're going to try something a little different for table topics today. My husband joined Toastmasters after I joined Toastmasters, and they had just recently tried this for table topics, and that's why I was emailing everybody to ask if we had done this. The would you rather questions, I don't know if you've done them in here before. Would you rather questions are based in how to build a conversation, and they are great because they ask people to make a choice. And sometimes the would you rather questions can be really light, or sometimes they can be very thoughtful. Things like, would you rather be able to detect a lie you hear or get away with a lie? Or, would you rather have no taste buds, or would you rather be colorblind? And then elaborate on why. So what we're going to do is I give you two hypotheticals, and you choose one, and then you elaborate. So I have seen that I believe Jane does not have a role. I believe Mary Alice doesn't have a role, and I believe that Corinne doesn't have a role. So the other three people want to call on today. So Jane, would you rather be the richest person in the world or the smartest person in the world, and why?